All meeting covered. Pledge allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with the roll call, please.
President Downs.
Here.
Vice President Everard.
Here.
Treasurer Gaten.
Here.
Secretary Fritz.
Here.
Trustee Thomas.
Yes.
Trustee Zimmerman.
Here.
Trustee Wazorek.
Here. Okay, thank you. Everybody's here. Public comments, anything, anybody out there?
There isn't anyone.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with 5.0 on presentations. You want to do the housing, 5.1?
Director of Operations, Planning and Public Safety, John Kramer, is remote, and I will just work to get the slideshow up for him.
Okay.
John, I will work on that.
Okay, I'll start by introducing the topic. In the spring, the Conservation District, as is a normal operating procedure, put forth the month-to-month license agreements for the district's houses that we have staff living in. And there were some questions, Trustee Zimmerman had asked some questions. And what that allowed us to do, or what we realized, is that as staff, we just know these things inherently. This is something we've been doing for years. And so it's just, part and parcel to what we do. And as we looked at it, and I looked at Trustee Zimmerman's questions, I'm like, wait a minute here. We have an opportunity to, and probably an obligation to, share with the Board of Trustees what this is all about, what the district's approach is to housing. Because there's a lot of nuances to it that they don't necessarily know. So in doing that, rather than just look at what Trustee Zimmerman was specifically looking at, we kind of took a larger lens at it, took a larger look at it, and said, okay, let's make this a little bit more comprehensive approach or discussion. I don't think we'll take too long tonight. I have a few slides to go over and some information. Elizabeth, if you could advance to the next one, that would be great. Really what we're looking at is I want to give you kind of an overview of the district's approach, how we do approach these houses. We want to do, talk about the revenue. We want to talk about the costs associated. Also, one of the things we thought would be a good gauge is to go out and figure out what other people are doing, what other agencies are out there doing this kind of stuff. So we'll cover a little bit of that information. The goal here is to really just provide you folks some information, give you bring you up to speed as to, what we've been doing for years and what we intend to continue to do. This will give you some guidance, and then it's kind of to confirm a direction. We've been basically everything that I'm going to present here is not new per se information. It's something we've been doing for a long time, but it's now we had it in our heads, we had it on our on our plates, and now we're sharing that information. So you can move on to the next one, please, Elizabeth. I wanted to give you a quick snapshot of what the current situation is at the district. There are a total of 6 houses that the district does a license agreement with, and those are licensed to staff people. We're going to spend most of our time talking about 5 and about a minute talking about one of them. The 5 that we're going to spend our time on are the ones that the employees rent the house from us, and that is their primary residence. The 6th one that I mentioned is actually a condition of employment. We have a host trailer, a campground host trailer at Thomas Woods Campground, which is in Marengo Ridge Conservation Area. And that is occupied by the campground host basically on the weekends when we have campers there. So that's not their primary residence. They don't pay anything for it. Basically, a condition of employment is that they live there. The other 5 are the ones we're going to spend our time talking about today. I want to also identify that the number has been declining. I believe that when I started with the district, over 20 years ago, we probably had about 10 of them. And today we have that 5. those remaining 5. Basically, through I'm going to say almost an evolutionary process, we have found that years and years and years ago, they sort of functioned more as a condition of employment. You had a site, you had a house, and you put a staff member in it, and that person was responsible for the gates and the maintenance and interacting with the public some and whatnot, and in some cases even, you know, some level of security. Obviously, with the evolution of the district, we have a professional police force, we have professional maintenance people, we have professional natural resources people. Those that through that evolution, these houses became less important to the district. You're going to find that also is the same thing that we learned when we had conversations with other conservation and forest preserve districts, that I don't want to diminish the security function because they still do serve that. There is no doubt about that. When you have a house on a site, they become the eyes and ears in some respects to help the police department. And it's just that presence makes people feel comfortable. I was having a conversation earlier today with one of the residents, and that was one thing that the individual reminded me of, that is a comfort. Another situation, and this is just a fact, and that is there's very little turnover. We've had employees stay in housing for, I would almost assume 30 years. I certainly know above 20 has been there. And they have, you know, raised their families, and then, you know, once their families move on, or they may move on from the district employment, and then they, you know, give up the house. We've had some quick ones, you know, 2-3 years or something like that. But generally, if they stay a district employee, they're in housing, they stay there quite a while. It is guided by a housing policy. It gives kind of some guidelines for staff as we are working through, you know, dealing with these housing agreements and whatnot. One of the key things is the rent is established by a formula. And that formula is based on basically 50% of the appraised value. I'm going to go into that just a little bit. Every 3 years, the district goes out and hires an independent appraiser to give us an assessment of how much the rents should be charged. It looks just like an appraisal you'd have done if you were buying a house or something like that, only it's based on rent. And we do that again every 3 years. And we just did that in late 2022, and that helped set the rental amounts for 2023. You can see at the bottom of the page there that the appraisals came in on average of $1,640, and the district's rents on average for those 5 houses we talked about was $799. Now I know you don't have, I'm not a math whiz, that's Andy's job, but you can see that that's not a full 50% of that 1640 number. There's a couple other little nuances in there. We have 2 of the houses get a lot of more knocks on the door. They're very front and center houses, and so therefore we discount that another small amount. I think it's about $60 a month. It's like a point that they get, and that's just for that inconvenience. We'll talk a little bit more about that rental formula on the next slide, and specifically how that came into play with as we were going out and measuring against other agencies. So I reached out to the network of directors of operations I have, because I know that a lot of those agencies have houses. We did hear back from 5 different agencies, and on average, those entities had 5 houses themselves. I think the smallest number was 3, and the largest might have been 10 or something like that. It was, but on average, that's where it was. They all had the same. They all had that common theme that that years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they had a lot more houses, and over the years they have been reducing that number. And really, when I asked the why, they said basically when they faced a large expense like a roof for a septic needing to be replaced, that was when they realized that they needed to suspend any more use of that facility and put it on the demolition list. The rents that I learned from the other agencies, this is a very curious thing for me because I didn't know how we matched up to that. There were lots of approaches. Some had a standard fee, some had an appraisal set, and then it was discounted by duties, and they had like a whole lot of listed duties. And I know the district used to have a system like that, but has since gone away from that system. In general, in a quick summary, the other agencies of those 5 were charging about $338 per month. The conservation district in McHenry County here is somewhere around that $799, which is what I reported before. One of the interesting things about this is of the 5 entities that responded, each of them wanted to know. I always ask whenever I do something like that, or whenever anybody does, it's like, hey, do you want the results of this? And all 5 of them said yes. So I sent it back to them, and here are the results. Here's what it was. And the most interesting question, the most frequent question I got back was, how is the conservation district setting its rental rate? And can you send me that formula, and how's it working? And I got the feeling after talking with a couple of them that they were interested in, they thought that our approach was somewhat more scientific, for lack of a better word, had a more structured approach. And it seemed that some of them were looking to try to implement that maybe as a model for their own approach. But that was an interesting fact that came out of that conversation. Can you move on to the next slide, please, Elizabeth? Now I want to get into the economics of it, the financial. The revenue is really easy to project, and that is in fiscal year 24, we budgeted $48,000. We'll be very close to that, maybe a few bucks more. I can't remember. I didn't really actually do that math. But for this analysis today, we're going to get into like a 5-year projection on it. And so that's why over the course of 5 years, if we didn't change the rate, it would generate $240,000 for the district. That's a number you're going to see later, so keep that in mind. The costs are a little bit more difficult, more involved to figure out. There's a couple different types of costs. There's a routine cost, which is just basically maintenance to fix things. Something breaks, the resident lets us know, we go take care of it. Those costs are a little harder to nail down, but we do have some projections on that and some pretty good data on it. The other part of that cost is the larger repair and replacement. That would be a situation where we need to put a roof on something, we need to paint something, we need to replace a septic system, something that's going to have some, significant dollars tied to it, but also some significant life to it as well. So you can move on to the next one, Elizabeth. So here's how we came to a conclusion on the routine costs. The annual maintenance cost, that's that, regular reoccurring type costs. We have a new, and basically you have labor and you have material. Go to that middle line there, that $8,300 and $60 amount there. That's a very solid number, meaning there's a lot of data behind that one. We have a very good tracking system for tracking, material costs to a specific structure or site or something like that. So that's a solid number. That labor number up above the $25,000 is a little softer. And it's soft because we were only about, when I pulled this data, we were only about 18 months of actively using a new maintenance management system, a work order system that captures time, the time the staff spend on things. But I use the word underreported because you could clearly see that in the trends. They were just learning the system, and so there were some glitches and, and how do I do this and how do I do that? But this 25,000 is the number that I could hang my hat on and say, yeah, I can prove that truly is attributed directly to these houses. I say it's underreported only just as an editorial comment. We're getting a lot better about it in reporting now that we understand the system a little bit better. But that is, so when you take that down annually, that's costing us about $33,000 to do the regular maintenance. The other costs that I did not put a dollar on are the administrative tasks. That's agreement renewals and inspections, and if there happens to be a need to be a corrective action or just a general request that has to be dealt with. It didn't. That ebbs and flows so much. In 2022, it was high. We had a couple of issues we had to deal with. Plus, we revamped the agreements. We went out and did those appraisals. So it was a one-off. This year, I talked with the staff a little bit. Except for the annual inspections, we really have not spent a lot of time on it. So I kind of just left that off to the side, didn't put a cost in. I really can't nail down a cost. So therefore, I'm just gonna just mention it, and move on. So Elizabeth, you can move on to the next one, please. Thank you. Here's where I think the rubber really hits the road, and that is these larger identified, anticipated repairs that we know are coming down the pike. That's your windows, your roofs, your septics, wells, structural issues, a furnace or something like that. These things that are going to cost more than $5,000 to replace. As you can see there, if you look down, you see Rush Creek. Within the next couple of years, we need to be spending $56,000 and change on that one. The next 2 years, you see 3 of them listed there: Coral Woods, the Glacial Park Route 31 house, and then the Hollows. All are facing, I'm going to say the average of that is probably $35,000 or so, $36,000 in that range. So we do have those expenses, or we anticipate needing to invest those kinds of dollars in these houses to make them viable, livable houses for people. The one that's a little bit of an outlier there is the Glacial Park one. That one is in much better shape and doesn't have those kinds of large expenses, significantly large expenses in the next 5 years. You can move on to the next one. So this is a 5-year snapshot. And if I've learned anything from Andy Dialek, whenever you do financial projections like this, you have to share the assumptions. Basically, my financial projections here assume 2 things that are key. One is there is no inflation in this, either the costs or inflation for rents going up. Okay, this is just, or going down. There is just no, these are at today's costs. And then the other part of that would be that all 5 of these houses, we do the repairs on them and allow them to continue to be leased. So down at the bottom of the page there, the revenue, we've talked about that $240,000 over the next 5 years. The maintenance cost, that's your regular routine maintenance cost every year times 5, that's $166,000 and change. And then this is where on that previous slide, the capital investment, those are the larger things, the wells, the septics, the roofs, things like that have to be done in the next, that's $182,000. As you can see that over the course of 5 years, that it then does run into the red and is a draw on district resources, that $114,000. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm spot on with that number, but I can tell you it's not 10,000 off. It's close to what we're looking at. So it's a pretty solid number. You can move on to the next one, please. So I want to just reiterate what has been the district's approach, and that is that we have been licensing these 5 units to staff members, and we do that until generally and I can't say 100% of the time we do this, but for the most part, when they're facing a larger capital repair or replacement, it's at that point in time where we're forced to make a decision to, no longer license that to the staff member and then end up putting that on the demo list. You saw before we were seeing some large expenses, specifically Rush Creek. And you can see that from the dates there that we are in our last year of that one. I did have a conversation with the person who is residing there in the spring, almost about the same time that we renewed the agreement. And I said, look, this is the last year that I'm going to recommend that we go ahead and allow that to be, because it needs significant investment. And my goal there, as is with all of these houses, is these are coworkers of ours, and I want to give them as long a runway as possible. So putting this information out in front of them and saying, look, this is kind of a rough projection of when these things could be coming offline. We might be able to sneak another year out if we can. Elizabeth is all in support of that, and so am I, if we can without those significant investments. But as you can see, it is nearing an end. All of these houses are facing some significant investment. The Glacial Park one, that one is kind of an outlier again. It's not facing a lot of costs. It does have, in my opinion, a tremendous security function with Lost Valley Visitor Center right around the corner. So it does serve quite a purpose for the district. You can move on to the next one, please. Thank you. Of course, just suspending the use of them doesn't mean the costs go away. If we do put them on the demo list, it does cost to demolish them. I think the average there is probably $45,000 or so. And these are based on the costs that came in with the Glacial Park demolition project. So these are today bid costs. When we get to actually doing them, they may go up. They may go down, I don't know, but this is today's cost of that. So you can move on to the next one. Finally, I just want to reiterate and just to conclude here by saying, the rents are established by a formula that I don't necessarily know where the formula came from, but it is a pretty solid formula. It gives us something to lean on and say, okay, this makes sense to us. In the short term, the costs and the revenues kind of cancel one another. Actually, I think it shows a little bit, running in the black, running in the positive. In the long term, it doesn't, because of those long-term repair replacement items. It's they're a draw on district resources. The trend at the district has been to reduce and, more importantly, not add. In the last 10 to 15 years, we have added, I'm sure, a half dozen houses. And in every case, someone said, boy, I sure like to live in there. But usually by the time we get a hold of them, in fact, every time by the time we get a hold of them, they have been in such disrepair that it's not worth the investment, and then turn around and put a staff member in there. We are consistent with the other districts in terms of that approach of, utilize them, but then, when they need more investment, we back off of using them. And as you can see from the district's approach, at the end of, when they're facing significant dollars, we are going to be recommending that they no longer be used by staff and come off the district's list of buildings. And with that said, you saw that there were, certainly 3 of them ending soon, and possibly even a 4th one. With that, I'll really what we're looking for is, this is our approach. If the board wants to say, hey, what about, let's consider a different approach, do this or that, we certainly would then adjust resources, both staff and capital resources to invest if that is what you folks wanted to do. With that said, I'll turn it back to you, President Dom, to lead the discussion.
Great, thanks, John. Anybody have any comments? I guess my first comment is maybe we should look at that formula and maybe, make adjustments. Maybe we need to go to the public sector, i.e., some realtors or something and see if there's, but, we can generate more revenue that way. I don't know. Any thoughts?
I'll comment, I mean, because I obviously worked with John and Andy with it, and I want to commend them for their time and energy put into this. When I kind of first brought the question up, I think it was earlier this year, and, I knew it wasn't something easy to tackle initially, obviously, as you said, having discussions with coworkers about, not having housing, but, I believe that the district, isn't in the real estate market, and that was the first thing. I didn't think we, number one, should be profiting off employees. I don't want to see it in the black, right? Because we shouldn't be making profit off employees living in our houses, but then too, we shouldn't be landlords, have that on our shoulders as well. And, when I've toured, some of the houses do look older. And I wouldn't want to put an employee in a house that didn't seem safe and that was on us to rehab. And so, I just want to commend them for their effort put into this. It was just more that, discovering what can be done with the process. I think they dug in, they did everything they could. What they presented to me, I was very impressed with. I think that they did their legwork. And I believe that their solution is the right path forward with these properties. We're not cutting anyone loose, but, within the next, 3-4 years, we'll be out of these properties. And I believe that's the best way to go. And I think their recommendation is spot on with supporting facts and data behind it.
Anybody else?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Are the properties always adjacent to recreational or bike paths or? And I know the one on Glacial Park is.
Yeah, I don't
or
think
they
they're
just-
all, they're on district property, obviously, but, I'm not sure if they're all positioned at an entrance. Is that what you mean? Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
probably not.
Yeah, Sean, I kind of agree. That's not the mission of the McHenry County Conservation District, but I was just wondering if you made that investment and then had another appraisal, give the employees ample notice that we would be leaving, but could you sell the property so we would exit out and then take the funds to reinvest it back into conservation?
You want to address that?
Yeah, so when the district picks up a piece of property, it is perpetuity. So with that, at the time of the real estate closing, that's the time to which to carve out the buildings if
Yeah.
you're going to do that. And sometimes you can, and the foundation has played a role, and sometimes the seller, and we've done that to divest at that time. But other times it's a critical piece for connectivity, for alignment to manage the property, and therefore you have to take the buildings that come along with it.
Yeah, the only other thought I would have is just, that the property in Glacier Parks serving as a key resource for security purposes might merit different consideration.
Keeping it better
Yeah.
keep or something.
Yeah.
That, you okay? Question? Yeah, go ahead there.
So, I guess I look at it a little bit differently in terms of it's kind of subsidized housing. So to me, it's part of the compensation package because they're living in a place at below market cost. My question is, in the past, when we've evicted somebody, essentially when we took town house, have we done anything to their compensation to offset the fact that they're now going to be taking on a much larger cost?
No, because it's not tied into their employment. There's only one property that is required that they reside there. So it's an option, and that option's available to any employee. When we open up and there's availability, we open it up to everyone, and then the rates are set as the rates. And then they have to be reported, that there is a financial benefit on their, taxing document. So they are taxed or whatever through the property or IRS, they have to account for that.
It's
But it's not
subsidized
part of
housing.
there.
But I look at it like, what I've dealt with, employees with company cars, if policies change and, so now the people at this level aren't eligible for company cars anymore. We would typically offer them something, recognizing they have to replace an employee benefit they were losing. So if it's not been done
There's
before,
some
we have to
value
go
there.
yeah. But if it hasn't done before, they're just wanting to find out what the process has been.
Yeah, there has not been any compensation because it's again, a limited employees, it's open,
Yeah.
it's limited to a few.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be fair to those who already left. There was no change, so never mind.
John, basically, you're saying, your plan of attack is laid out. Is there any, room to, maybe take a look at the rents and see if there's different value there? Or do we just,
Well, it obviously would be if the direction of the board is to go back and revisit that, that's exactly what we would do. I mean, that would be the direction we would do. There is a bit of a rationale to not do that, because all of these individuals basically just heard that in the next couple of years, they're going to be out of housing or out of the district house. I'm going to have to find alternative housing. We see the sunset coming on these things. And so that, as a fellow coworker of theirs, I don't want to add insult to injury, but I will do exactly, I will do, if that is the bidding of the board, then, we'll go back and look at it and a different formula and go and that will be then wrapped into the renewals for next year.
I'm not saying this, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your question, and actually, I think that just based on the research John had done with some of the other districts, our district is set up pretty well with the agreements and the pricing currently to exit out. I think the other districts are actually in a worse shape than we are, because as you said, you saw that average of what other districts are and what ours is, because ours is just kind of fair market value is what we're charging people because we have the house, right? But the forward idea is the fact that it's going to cost so much to keep these houses going because they're in disrepair. So, not that we couldn't question it, but sitting with them and looking over everything, it's, they're paying a fair amount, and I think that these employees can get housing currently for something probably similar somewhere
Very
else.
similar,
Yeah.
okay.
Can
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
just have to say that I think $7.99 for rent is really good. I don't know that they're gonna find housing anywhere outside the district for $7.99 in a wonderful location like they have
Out in the country.
And
out in the
square,
country.
and square footage.
Exactly.
I agree 100%.
I do not, I 100% feel like they have, and I'm not saying anything, I'm not saying to raise it, I am just saying that's a darn good rent to pay. Cause I know what rent is, well, I have a house, but I know what rent is out there, and it's not $7.99 anywhere in our area. And I just wonder, do they pay their own utilities?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
To clarify, they're paying 50% of previous fair market value, so that's where it starts.
Right.
So,
But really, I think our own numbers go out, and you can verify, we go back to the forecasted revenue for 5 years versus the forecasted costs, pretty much shows you'd almost have to double the rents to break even.
Right. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
that's a limited window, right?
I mean, it's water over the dam now. I mean, it's.
Well, if you're not gonna, if you are not preserving these houses and doing the upgrades and updates that they need, and you're going to get rid of them, great. If you wanted to keep them, then I feel like rent should go up.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to the point is, we realize the investments, these are not properties that the district intends, there's no future use. So that's why you're seeing that we are not recommending that investment, that we divest ourselves from that. We've had on past renewals when someone has left, whether they left employment, and then that obviously triggers, even though it's not a condition of employment, they no longer can live there. We haven't always had a group, wishing to live into district housing because it does not always have, yes, you're beautiful to natural outdoor spaces, but with it had come some responsibilities for stewardship that, your private spaces is no longer your private spaces. It's now everybody's business, and so therefore, maybe not so
A
great.
little bit different.
And so the other thing too, when someone has not been in the place, it does become an area for vandalism, or it's left and we have some more accelerated issues. So it's kind of, if the shifting in this approach that the team has come up with, and I think it's a great question, because we want to make sure to the taxpayers, to our residents, that we're being fair to them and this property, and that we are doing the right thing. The other thing I will say is, and again, it's open to all employees, but the employees that have ended up with housing have not been our leadership top tier employees. So, I'll just say that as well.
Well, rather than belaboring this too much, our consensus then, you think, we want to stick with the staff's plan, or,
So basically, just when the house is not in a shambles, but when it's not worth putting any money into it, that
well, yeah, they have.
roof needs a new
someone on the
roof,
plan.
because it costs more than what you're getting out of it, so.
Okay, I guess that's our consensus, John, is to continue your path.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
all right,
Thank you.
thanks for the time.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the Lions Prairie and Marsh feasibility study update.
Yeah, I don't have a presentation for you tonight. Provided two to the board in the past, and then you also heard from Haynes Associates, Dave Kraft. So I think everyone's pretty much familiar with it. Probably not Ron, but everyone else is. And just wanted to provide an update here tonight on where we're at, but also provide another opportunity for the board as a key stakeholder in this process to provide any input, because we're currently in the stage of drafting the final report. I'm working with the consultant, and we will be doing the final draft in November with the goal of presentation to the board of the final document in December. That's our goal of the December board meeting. So if there is anything that the board would like to input, now would be a good time. You certainly, if you want to think about it, can get back to me as well. But as a reminder, the feasibility study was taking a look at 3 different options: restoring to 1939 condition, restoring to 2014 condition, and then this no action approach. And then Hay Associates had the flexibility to provide any other options that they felt was necessary based on their professional judgment. And they added that 1974. And the reason they added that 1974 condition as a reminder was because of the FEMA floodplains. So if we had to do a restoration, it was likely that we would have to go off those FEMA numbers in 1974 for restoration based on permitting. As you heard from David Kraft, the costs were quite high. They took a look at some of the issues that were there and saw that it's kind of stabilized. There was that 2014 when we had high water, and the stream kind of did a little bit of migration, but it's been more or less stable since then. And then the other component through this, all the stakeholder and public involvement, is we heard a lot of comments about weight. And when the board approved to go with Hay, we originally were talking about having an engineering of predicting what it would look like if we did no action. And we adjusted that based on the public comments about weight to include the weight study. So Hay had provided us an a la carte approach. And then that's when we transitioned to the weight study. They subcontracted that with Geosyntec, and Geosyntec has completed that. I've not seen it yet, but it will be incorporated into the draft report that we're dealing with in November, and obviously will be incorporated into the final report. So with that as the key stakeholder, being the board, if you have any input, now would be a time to either ask any questions or provide input that we can incorporate into that draft document.
If a no wake zone is put in, who polices that?
So that would be through the Fox Waterway Agency. They're responsible for that. So all we could really do is recommend it. If the wake study shows that wake is a key contributing factor to erosion, the district at that point in time would go to the Fox Water Agency and say, hey, based on this study, based on this data, public process, we are recommending a no wake zone from whatever the distance would be.
I guess, yeah, until we actually really see that report, you really can't make a decision.
Right. And then if we were to go on a restoration type route or construction, reconstruction, whatever you want to call it, stabilization, we would certainly take a look at a different mechanism for funding that. As everyone saw, the costs are pretty high.
Right.
So go out and get grants, look for opportunities for funding, but that would be a different route. Again, I haven't seen the wake study, so I can't really comment on that yet, but it is possible that there could be a recommendation for a slow no wake zone.
Right. Well, at this point, I guess we don't have any direction.
No, if you had any input on the process or anything that, based on my previous presentations or Dave's presentation, that would be good to incorporate into the final document as a key stakeholder.
Okay, everybody can submit something if they have anything. We can get back to you here this next week.
Sounds great. Are there any questions?
No questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to new business. 6.1, we'll review the regular meeting agenda. I think everything's acceptable at this point. Go ahead and approve that.
The only thing I do want to add, that came up when I talked with President Dom is if we can get everything together, and I'll work with, Attorney Payne, to do that. We presented to the board about having a veterans hunt with, it's the outdoors, the fallen outdoors. And so we need to get an MOU in place, for that hunt to take place, and Linda's scheduled for the end of this month to begin. So I'm gonna work on getting it, the document. We've been working on that today, and would have that available to add under other board business for Tuesday night.
So that could be an addition to our agenda.
But I won't put it on the consent agenda. We have it on the business.
Right. Are we good with that? Yes. If we're good with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Andy, we're gonna go to you with the health insurance update.
Well, I guess the good news is when we presented the health insurance, additional rates, estimated rates from IPDC, when we did the budget planning, they anticipated a 10.6% increase for both the PPO and the HSA plan. The PPO plan came in locked in at 10.6, but the final rate now for the HSA or PPO high deductible was only 8.8%, a little less than that. And the HMO stayed at 3.6%. So from what we presented to the board during the budget planning, costs are anticipated to go down, or be approximately $18,000 less if they included, so that's good news. I think that's it. I mean, the plans are staying unchanged. We have open enrollment coming in a couple weeks, actually the first half of November. And that could change too, right? If people select different plans, that'll change what the actual is, but right now, the way the plans are set up, that's what that $18,000 cost reduction is.
Any questions or?
Yeah, two questions. The overall aggregate increase, I think, was forecast at 7.1, and the healthcare is right around 8, with the HMO not changing. Nationally, healthcare plans are going up 7%. So we're in the ballpark in terms of what we should expect. So we're okay there. The only problem I have is 7% of what? I don't know where we're at. What's the, how does our plan cost compare on a national basis? So the average cost for per family coverage, per family,
Okay.
per family coverage for those, that's the most expensive one. Family, then employee plus one employee. It's $24,000. The average per employee is $14,000. And that's healthcare only. That's the 90+% of.
So I can pull
So,
up here.
yeah, you have to respond now.
Right now, we're under 15, it's 14 something on average for all the plans together, meaning family and single.
Yeah.
I think it's like 14.4 or 14.5.
Okay, then we're right in the
Yeah.
ballpark. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Great. All righty. County Conservation Foundation project list.
All right, we do have Shauna with us, and just what we've done in working in partnership with the foundation is prepare a project list to present to this board. If there is anything on the list, and I can have Shauna speak to it, but anything that's on the list that we do not wish to have advanced over to the foundation to consider, now would be the time to say, hey, this doesn't belong here, let's take it off. What were you guys thinking? No, we don't agree. If it's agreeable, it volleys over to the foundation, and the foundation board has it to determine what they wish to fund, right? And so then they've got open to look at. There's been things in the past where they've been consistent. You know, they do not want to fund operational types of activities that really are general fund and the researchers should be paying for, you know, to keep our lights on, to do the basic, you know, maintenance of things, but there are special projects. Shauna, do you want to talk to any of the items? I'll let you take the stage here.
Yeah, so the only thing that I wanted to maybe mention is in the past, I know that the board has been opposed to funding vehicle and equipment costs. This year, there are 2 pieces of LP&R equipment on that list that are related to prescribed fire. And I had asked that we add those on the list. They were included in the land protection camp fund, I guess. Camp, I'm confusing all these things. It was in their budget for fiscal year 25. And we had some success this year funding one piece of equipment that they were looking to bring in. And my hope is that with those on the list, we will be able to further secure funding for those pieces, given that they are very appealing to those people who want to support natural resource management. Other than that, I think everything else is straightforward and similar to what has been brought forward in the past. But I can answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
That was the thing that slid in, right? That's what you're talking about?
Oh, on the vehicle thing?
Yeah,
That was that piece of equipment.
that firefighting thing that slid in, that skid mounted thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a budgeted item, and then, and what Shauna does, which is awesome, is staff, we have things that need funding, and so, what they've been really creative is sometimes it's not as easy to do, but she's been able to partner, find someone that then does remove it off our list versus going into their fund reserves there and just depleting that, but if they can find new monies in to cover it, it's a win-win, right?
Right.
So.
Good, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 6.4. Been brought to my attention that the snowmobile trail that we had worked hard on all last year got a little diverted. The farmer that we were gonna connect to his property with that trail no longer wishes to have it there. So the Snowmobile Club is looking for an alternate answer. So I guess I'm just throwing it out there, and there is a representative here, George. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, maybe, I'm not gonna get it. You guys, I don't know if you have that, there it is. So now you got your trail there. Yeah, this is kind of neat, thank you. It's a pointer. Here, and this here is the Zinskis, and when I first talked about going through, we got permission, everything over there to you guys, and then there's a time, and then it took forever to get it done right away, it was sheer. So when we got it done, and I was so thank you guys for pushing and working on that, it's great. So I went back to him and said, hey, go through it, and he goes, nah, I don't know. So I talked to him 3 times, and finally, I think he just went to Chris and said no, so I'm trying to do my best to stay with job and go through there, I'm not sure why, you know, so we obviously can't go that direction. There's 2 items, actually it's 3 items, so yeah, we can go back to running the road, we do now, don't really wanna do that, dangerous, ditch. And cars don't like us, and I was thinking, where is the actual eagle's nest on there?
Up there, point ground zero, in the middle of that circle. up by the
The green dot?
green dot, I believe that's
That
it.
one?
Is that it?
I believe that's close to it.
Yes.
Yes, that's
Thank you.
proximity.
I didn't see over there.
And then
Would,
the two radiuses are the federal laws.
Okay.
This is here,
Yeah.
the first one.
So the green dot, and then there's two large dotted circles around. Those represent distances. I think one's 1,000, one's 2,000.
Okay.
And those are directly from the,
And
ordinance.
what is the law that, how close you can be?
Correct.
Well, what is the closest you can?
we don't have it handy off the top of our head, but
Yeah, this was what was agreed upon, and approved, that those were that was the agreed upon, distance was the 2,000. You're not gonna get any closer.
Like 2,000.
it's 2,000 feet.
Great, so what do you do about the cars here?
Well, we don't have jurisdiction over the DOT as far as the traffic on the roadways. But,
And that's a pre-existing condition that was there previously to
yeah.
the nesting.
Have
So in
you,
those circles, it's a no-no.
pretty much, have you considered, you're coming off of Avang Road, I see at the very bottom right-hand corner. There's only two landowners, I think, on the east side of Queen Anne. Is there a possibility of somehow going through the back? Going, and then coming back.
Would you, so. We come road obviously right now.
Yeah.
So you got the buffer zone. And. So all this is. This is a farm piece here.
My thoughts are, you're connecting from
Yeah,
here, right?
we come
So,
over here.
can you come through here and come up and then connect back over here somehow?
Oh, I'd love to.
Okay.
But that's liaising and I very much doubt I can get into it. And then you got David and stuff there too. Yeah, this is, so you can put those circles up there, that's interesting. I didn't know about the circle.
Well, yeah, that's federal law that we put on,
Yeah, they're not our circles.
no, they're not our circles, that's set by the.
Correct.
Those were associated with the fines. If you were within there above a certain decibel
It
level.
was a $10,000
you're subject to a
fine or whatever. So, pretty much. Maybe you need to go sweet talk Mr. Zabelski again and they offer. Something that I don't know, but that's about the only thing I can see. So
A nice bourbon or something.
Yeah, a nice,
Christmas present.
he might.
So this is, this is the guy that don't want him.
Correct, it'd be the
In the
light,
gray
the
area?
gray area.
Yeah, right here.
This
This one.
federal line is,
That was our proposal.
And I spoke to him also and he, just doesn't want.
It's just farmland, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't own it.
Well, I know, but I mean, right, it's just kind of thing.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
That yellow line on not the district's property is
That was a proposed area.
right, but all, we were just trying to show that it was to connect you from where we had jurisdiction to give you, approval. So that yellow line could be anywhere. I just want to make sure that you understand and that the landowner understands. It doesn't have to be that alignment of the yellow line. It
No,
can be
but-
anywhere on his property, but it's gonna come out of the district property at that square. Yeah, that,
And then
All this is his property.
yeah, all of it is. But
And,
I didn't know if
everything
there-
that's gray is his, so unless we can go, there's really no other way to.
Is there is that, what's that little blue line at the bottom of the gray? It's not at the bottom, it's like, yeah, what is that?
It's a creek, Slough Creek.
Yeah.
What we going through here?
nature preserve, or no? And, another jurisdiction's rules.
it's an Illinois State Nature Reserve.
Wow. So where do you go now? Where do you,
We're on the road,
So they,
shoulder the
that
road.
yellow.
We got trail coming in here, and we actually run got permission from a lot of great farmers all around us.
So what you typically do is just go down that road.
Run down Register Road, yeah, we've run it 2 years.
No, it's not the safest thing to do, but
No, and even if you come here, go past, you gotta go past that. This is another farm set, they're like, I don't know these people.
the horse farm. Yeah, that's good, yeah.
Yeah, they're not gonna want,
She's a veterinarian, I don't know.
she's not gonna want
Up to here.
snowmobiles on her property.
Pardon?
You
She's
know,
not gonna want
No, I didn't think so.
snowmobiles with horses.
So even in the backside, and you guys own all this land, it's-
yeah, but we don't have an eagle back there.
Not yet.
Oh, wow.
Really, so,
Our ultimate goal was if we could just run on the west side of on the grass strip right up parallel with Queen Anne Road, but now that
you got
the
those
second
circles,
black line,
Yeah.
the second arc of the circle, the 2,000 foot mark, we would be in that for a
Yeah,
few.
like with the
little
cars,
bit.
we do it with the cars.
Like they can go on the road.
Pardon?
Technically,
That's just where the circle is, that's past the road.
Yes, that's what I meant. to say.
Yeah.
I think that's, I
So,
so, but that suppose you got no jurisdiction.
Oh,
But
okay,
it was
yeah.
pre-existing before the Eagle, and the Eagle federally trumps whatever, I mean. They moved there, the Eagles decided to nest there with the road, understanding that was there already.
wait, were you already there? Were you already running that road? What, was that the question?
Before the Eagles, we've been on the road twice, about 2 years ago.
Oh,
We've been kind of working on this for like 10 years. And we met with,
What about, boats and,
Burger
eagles and that stuff?
a couple of times here, back, not before some of the people even doing it here yet.
Boats go.
And we had this all gone through and it got shut down. This is kind of interesting. I don't. No way around it. There's no way.
Well, we can supply this to him so he can
You could, what?
supply the map
Absolutely.
with this, so he can digest a little more instead of,
There's, like I said, I know the area pretty well, so.
yeah, it'd be, the only suggestion I could say would be the Avang Farms, both of them, the both Lily and Dave. And then up by our property by the subdivision.
So,
and back up.
yeah, so if he came, in a subdivision, you guys, which a legend wasn't down there. Take a legend.
Hey, unfortunately, I can't move it, it's a PDF.
Oh. I need to figure out how to get my, because I'm not a tech computer tech, I got my one company, I need these pictures, I can't do it. I can get my pictures. But anyways, yeah, I don't think we can get into that property, I know Grant who runs around. And then, but if we can get into there somehow, what's that look like? Is there-
Something that we have,
as you go further east along the Nippersink, there are 2 other nature preserves.
All right, so this is a nature preserve here,
It's somewhere in that area.
it's by where the subdivision is, where you guys picked up these pieces of properties from open lands.
No, that is not in.
None of that there is. There's a pretty good bluff, like coming down in here over this creek. But none of that is in the nature preserve.
I don't believe any of that's in the nature preserve.
I think it is.
Well, I can't tell from that.
Yeah, I
Yeah, so you can tell.
On the east side of
Yeah, I can move this thing.
Can't go in there.
The east side.
The east side, east side, you said?
The east side is.
I don't know, Amy will have to explain to you again, basically,
Is it noise, Is that the
It's the
the federal
lights.
law basically is,
noise?
gives us that much distance from an eagle.
It's not just noise, it's disturbance in general.
Yeah.
So it could be noise, it could be the proximity of vehicles. And this is based on studies done across the
Right.
country. The
And-
district didn't do this.
I know.
It's very interesting because I do a lot of writing for this too, up in the UP and stuff. I mean, they got trails marked right below what do you think, those are like their structures that built for eagles.
Mhm.
Trails marked in,
Yeah.
honestly, they're not.
Oh,
And
and
the eagles are
I,
flying over the top of you.
Yeah, George-
I guess one time I had to come.
I agree with you, but
I know,
we're
where you're going at.
situated though with the facts with, and we can probably, if we want to, as a board, approve using that, strip along the road. But we have the liability of getting fined, a large fine, correct?
There are fines for disturbance to use land.
Right,
Yeah.
So what about the first stretch of the grass strip, closer to Aving Road, isn't in a circle, and then north of the farm, there's a 10-acre farm, we could get in a grass strip the rest of the way to Allendale
Talk
up
about
there.
here. So this stretch here to here, Bill's talking about, and this stretch from. Let's see, this here, those two, right?
Yeah,
The one we got, so we got this little stretch here. Alright, and maybe we can get in with Dave. But then we have to figure out how we run the road a little bit, and then,
up to a triangle, you're thinking?
yeah, well, yeah, but then you got the one stretch, I forgot, this was just sold not that long ago.
a landscaper from Libertyville
Yeah,
owns that
owns that.
10
So, but-
acre
yeah,
farm,
and then you
the old
guys-
farm there.
You guys are right here to the creek lease, and then we got to go over a bridge, so we'd probably bail off and get on the road there. We got this grass strip,
Yeah,
and the only other grass strip is this one right down here. Those are just grass strips.
I think I can sit and have a meeting with you. I think we might be able to look at that, at least take a look at it.
Because it's way, I mean, it's another, I don't know how many thousand square foot. It's just, but another foot, I mean, beyond that.
Maybe tomorrow we can take a look.
But you say you got this one stretch, you guys all understand what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Was it about 2.5 miles from the top of the page to the bottom? Roughly?
Possibly.
Are those,
Yeah, it's
are
about
those
right.
circles
Totally,
exact, or are they buffered at all, like an extra 10% or anything?
No, they're GIS, so they're pretty accurate.
Okay,
Yeah.
And I believe.
I just didn't know if
I
maybe
believe
built
we
in a
gave
buffer.
this, I believe we gave this map. Did we give this map?
Yes, we
Yes,
Yeah.
but it was fresh.
So we did share that already.
Right.
Well, there's those two little sections.
But he's thinking maybe those, some of those buffer strips right next to the road, not in the circled area. Would that be a possibility?
Right, that's what I'm thinking. Cause obviously you ain't gonna let us go in there,
That's it.
but just,
Let's look at it and see.
you got that buffer zone, and you got this one right here.
Okay, George, what we'll do is, staff and I'll take a look at that and, see if we can make something work and.
And for that, so I understand, that just reduced the amount of time that you're on the road. Is what you're-
Correct, that's what he.
It would almost cut it in half of the amount of area we would be, maybe a little less. but-
It's less than that, what's a third?
So that would be the goal. with
That's
that.
the goal, is to get them off the road for safety, I guess.
Because I don't think you can even, yeah. So, yeah, we know exactly what we get on, coming on here, and we get your signs be back on the road. They're all on the road, so this is, I mean, this is not even that far. If you look at that, that's probably. Looking at a ledger, maybe 1,000 feet. From.
Right, it's not a lot.
From there, and then you're back on, then like this, and then we go, basically, if we don't get any other permission, I'll be all the way on the road to another 1,000 feet down here north of Cooper's property.
Right,
To get the things.
there's just a couple small strips that we could help you out, that's about it.
It's very, very little. Very little.
We'll look and see if we can even do that. Okay, I'll get back to you then on that, thank you. We're gonna move on then. Elizabeth, your report?
Okay, here, under Director's Report, just a few things for you. I did send out information, for the board, so if you would respond back with Trust for Public Land, we'd like to hold some individual small meetings to go into a little bit more detail. And they're willing to do that, and that'll be some conversations via Zoom. So, please RSVP of timing, and then I'll set that up. Yeah, we'll have no more than 2 board members with that, but, please respond, and TPL's been wonderful, with the work that they've been doing. Also, I'd like to schedule, the DC Annual Committee on Local Government Efficiencies. We're set for November to kind of reconvene and share what we have. And so at this point, what I'm looking for versus, trying to find another date for a meeting is potentially in November, the regular meeting, which is the 21st. If we get through most of the stuff with presentation, the cows usually take longer. And then usually the regular meeting goes, knock on wood, pretty quick. then we could maybe convene the DCNE like at 7, so do a 5, take a little break, start at 7, and then get through that, if that would be reasonable, if that's not
It's
something.
better than coming back
I
for a
can
whole
schedule
other
another
meeting,
meeting.
probably.
Yeah.
Well. it won't go well. It'll go well.
I won't do that.
No, I just say as long as they don't go forever.
Well, that's up to you guys.
Okay.
No presentations we'll be discussing, but, so that's kind of what I'm thinking. I can try to set it up, like we did last time, though you need to make the distinct meetings, to separate it, to go out of one meeting, we can do the public hearing and go into the other meeting so that we don't have to wait to start. But, again, I'll know a little bit as we get closer what's on the agenda and how much discussion, you know, that we have at the cow, and I suppose I could repost and readjust if need be to, right, just to be efficient, since we're talking about efficiencies.
Right.
On that side. As well, in November, last month, we did share the GovHR results of the, draft that they had on the compensation study. Where we are as part of the process, and President Dom and those, Vice President Everard and Trustee Wazorek, no, part of the process was a reconsideration process for staff. Once they saw the review, to have their managers and themselves, if they were interested in having, they didn't agree necessarily of how things shook out, or they felt there was something that needed to be looked at or communicated, they had the opportunity to respond. And so we did receive that. We had approximately of about 54 positions. I think if I was calculating this right, about 30%, you know, we're looking to have positions be looked at of the positions available. So GovHR, everything's been turned back over to them. They are looking at all that. That'll come back to the team, Andy, Jenny, and myself. We will then pull in Vice President Everard and Trustee Wazorek to look at the implementation plan, and then we will present an implementation in November. So that's the plan of how things are faring. We just couldn't, I think, get the information just turn around for this meeting, so that's kind of what we decided to do. Just a couple of other announcements. Several time of the year for a lot of gatherings. The Illinois Environmental Council had their legislative dinner. And so we attended that this past Tuesday. We were there at the Open Lands luncheon, several staff members and foundation, we did go. Jerry Edelman, who is their CEO, who is retiring this year after 35 years of service, was honored with their conservation award. And in reading through Open Lands, they are celebrating their 60 years. They have a beautiful booklet that's out and information. I thought it was well done. But they were involved here in their book in 1972, actually it's 1971, but they helped establish the conservation district. So they were around before we were created. And they're a strong partner of ours in a lot of the work that we do in preserving land and restoring those areas in the county. Thank you for the opportunity to attend the National Recreation Park Association conference last week. I took a lot of great information. I'm hopeful to encourage, as I am, staff. We're in Atlanta, Georgia next year. It'd be great to see some staff and board be able to attend, to submit conference sessions, because that's a great opportunity to highlight some of the great work that we are doing. And then the IPRI conference is coming up in January, so I will send out a reminder again. Trustee Zimmerman has expressed an interest in attending. I know we have to put together for IEPD as far as their annual business meeting, who's going to be the delegates, like we've done. So we'll need to work through that out, who wants to be primary, secondary, tertiary, and alternates for that. And the legislative luncheon is on that Friday of the conference, and we'll be sending out letters to our legislators and coordinating all of that. And I will just say that the staff has done an amazing job. We have several team members that are presenting at the conference in the session. And now this is the first year that the Forest Preserve and Conservation section has their own track with a lot of great opportunities to learn. So again, more relativity as far as information to be shared for individuals in our profession. And the last thing I will say is that 2 of our team members are now moving into officer positions. They were just on the ballot for the Illinois Park and Recreation Association. And so a shout out to Jenny Hyder and Caitlin Martinez-Cliffwater for their taking leadership roles in this section. So all good. And that is all I have.
Okay, is there any updates on the vehicle bid
Yes, John, are you still with us?
I'm here.
Or Perry, please.
Yes, we have good news.
Okay.
Moving ahead, we had 7 vehicles last year that we placed orders on through the state bid purchasing program. We received news from our vendor that 5 of those vehicles have been delivered to the dealership.
This is on the state.
This is through the state. Correct. So those vehicles are in the lot. They're adding the options to those vehicles, and we should have those within the next few weeks. The 2 exceptions, if you're following, were the 2 one-ton dump trucks, which is cab chassis, then the box hydraulics and all that will go on. Good news on that front as well is that they're being built. So we should see those.
Through the state also?
Yes, through the state.
It'll all be Fords.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So we're looking at the utility trucks, the 5 utility pickups, and then the 2 dump trucks through the state. Those were ordered last year, November, so it's pretty much about a year turnaround on those currently through the state bid purchasing program. As mentioned at last month's meeting, then we took a look at the county's procurement and bid process, and to see if we could piggyback off of their program. And they were more than happy to share their information with us, and we were more than happy to do so. So we placed those orders, and those were 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 of the utility trucks, 2 of the Dodge Durangos for 3 cruisers, and then 2 Chrysler Pacificas. So of those vehicles, we were able to order 4 of those. And the 2 Chrysler Pacificas will be available to order probably within the next month or so. Turnaround time, depending on the strike and the way things are going. Availability, the dealership at Sunnyside, they're thinking about 3 to 6 months out. That's good news that potentially we could have 13 vehicles back in our fleet, new vehicles for that rotation program by the end of the fiscal year. That being said, then for next fiscal year, those vehicles that we budget for, more than likely, since we have a quicker turnaround and they're more readily available through the county, will continue to be Dodges for the time being. So that's where we're at budgetary wise, both from last fiscal year, this current fiscal year, we're pretty much spot on. We will not be over budget. We'll be at or just a little bit under budget for this year and last year from last. Good. So that's where we're at. So finally some good news.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any report from our police, Ryan, do you have anything to?
Nope, we're just real quick, we're filling that officer position we have open, we have testing coming up. So we got 13 candidates narrowed down to, and hoping to find a good one in there.
Excellent.
Some of which are already certified. Some are new candidates who are right out of college, so we're hoping to find the right person.
Good, all right, good news.
And I forgot to mention one other thing, and Stephanie Michaels is on, and she's been serving as our IT systems administrator. And just wanted to share and thank her for her leadership, for what she's done to bring us along, and particularly I pay special notion to, obviously, all the work for training of staff on cyber awareness and cybersecurity, but also through the pandemic. She was instrumental in helping us pivot, as we all were, but to have the technologies and be very proactive and the work to pull everything out of the district and to the board, that we were able to do so well as we did. But she is departing us. She did give notice, so we will be posting the position to fill and working with our consulting.
What's our timetable on that?
We're gonna post it today if it went out. Did it
Yeah,
go?
we posted it today, but she'll be leaving, her last day will be probably the first week of November. She won't start her new job, she won't start her new job for a few weeks after that, so she'll be available to support our remote if needed. But we're very well positioned with enhanced networks with third party IT, so I think we'll have a decent candidate.
Well, what a nice career she had, she moved up through the ranks in 24 years.
Yeah.
If you know good IT people that are systems administrators, send them this way, okay?
Stephanie and I started as interns together. The same summer.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. All right, one other public comments? George, your public comments?
Public comment, I was just kind of reading a letter that was sent to me about that great trail. I was, to clarify, the closest proposed alignment comes to the next, it's approximately 2,625 feet there, up there. Current snowmobile route travel is fully enrolled right away, which is approximately 1,750 for the nest. The recommended buffer between the nest and the trail is to exceed 660 feet. This distance was recommended in the report authorized by Brad Wilson and Cindy Jablonski. What that 660 feet?
I don't know.
I have to pull back the federal minimal standards of that letter and what was the, I can pull it up, but the date of that letter. I think we were looking at
Letter is
the
April 25th,
April 25th of 2023.
when you just, when that's when you.
When we approved all that, but we'll take a look. I think we provided information, again, federal agencies of minimal recommendations. And then, based on that, so I think that's what we need to go back and look through.
And we haven't visited this since,
Well, it lasts early spring when we
Yeah.
approved it, yeah. We'll look into different alternates, options, if there are any options, and I'll get back to you.
As I recall, there were different fine levels for different distances.
Correct.
But I think that's where the first one was.
I don't know where the 660 came from, why Brad put that 660, is it the idea?
That's a new.
I don't.
Yeah, obviously went to 5 people.
Yeah, we can pull the reports that were provided to the board and I'll pull that up and send that out to you and we'll look at that. If there was the federal standards of their recommendations. Minimum standards.
Maybe good to know what the fines were too. They were pretty.
They were hefty, that's why.
Yeah. And those, again, minimum standards.
Okay, any other public comments? Good. We're gonna move on to, I'd like to entertain a motion for executive session.
so
Second.
Okay, you go to motion,
say where we're going.
yeah, go 10.0. Here. Read that one.
Motion to go into executive session pursuant to 2C2 collective bargaining, 2C5 lease, purchase of real estate, and 2C21 review of closed session meetings.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, or how you gonna do it?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
call, please.
I'm sorry, trustee Thomas,
Yes.
treasurer Gayton,
Yes.
trustee Zimmerman,
Yes.
trustee Wazorek,
Yeah.
secretary Fritz.
Yeah.
Vice President Everard.
Yes.
President Dom.
Yes. Okay. In the executive session, we'll come back into regular meeting time after that, so.
No actions. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. All right, reconvening.
It is right now at 6:54.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
President Dom.
Here.
Vice President Everard.
Here.
Treasurer Gayton.
Here.
Secretary Fritz.
Yeah.
Trustee Thomas.
Here.
Trustee Zimmerman.
Present.
And trustee Wazorek.
Here.
Okay, so now, any other discussion, quick?
One quick thing, I
Yeah.
can put a pitch in, everybody, if you haven't seen the, Ken Burns documentary on American bison, American buffalo, I'd recommend, it's 2 hours, 2 sessions.
Is that on my channel?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I started watching that.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
But they export, all the tongues. So they
Yeah.
sold all the tongues and
Yeah.
Okay, what
Did you end up going down there for the debut? Because Rooter Bison, they did a nice, which Rooter Bison is our bison, and they, in the Mitchell.
That was
in
part
our-
of that?
And they were,
Was
well,
that
not part of the
channel
movie,
11?
Oh.
but they did a facilitation to debut a preview of it. And Rooter
PBS
Bison was there for discussion, the Mitchell Indian Art Museum and their work. And it was a lovely, I was gone in Dallas at the time it was taking place.
Yeah, no, I wasn't aware of it, but,
Yeah, so they did a little preview of that.
it's definitely worth
Lloyd,
watching.
what was it called again? I'm sorry.
It's called American Buffalo.
I'll send out the link.
Channel 11.
Yeah.
It's on PBS right now. I need, a motion for adjournment, please.
I make that motion to adjourn?
Okay, the moved and seconded,
Second.
roll call, please.
Trustee Zimmerman.
Yes.
Vice President Everard.
Yes.
Trustee Thomas.
Yes.
Trustee Wazorek.
Yes.
Treasurer Gayton.
Yes.
Secretary Fritz.
Yeah.
And President Dom.
Yes.
We're adjourned.
Good evening, we're-